Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another review. My name is Abby, or Spaceman Chuck, and today we are going to be reviewing Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. As someone who's only played the revolutionary role-playing game a handful of times, I may not be the direct demographic this film is seeking out. However, as a fan of fantasy comedy in both of the director's last film, Game Night, I went into this with a moderate amount of expectations. Though there are a few moments that truly boast off some creative ingenuity, the entire endeavor feels restrained due to its $150 million budget. It feels visually incompetent, as it faces the modern blockbuster dilemma of framing everything so disingenuously through CGI instead of natural composition. Because of this, a lot of decently written moments don't hit quite as well as they should. Starting with the film's opening. The cast and characters are fun, yet one-dimensional, and their quest is one that propagates their generic arcs in a film that plays competence as its trump card. The visual gags can be exciting, especially one moment in the middle which features a druid escaping capture by transforming into a variety of different animals. Yet, none of it amounts to anything truly spectacular. There's a cameo within the movie where the entirety of the joke itself is the actor in the scene. It feels cheap. Some jokes land, some don't, and we're left with a movie that just feels passable due to the state of blockbusters in the industry. The film opens with Bard Edgin Davis, played by Chris Pine, imprisoned with his barbarian friend Holga, played by Michelle Rodriguez, for a plan gone awry in which the former was attempting to steal a tablet of resurrection to bring his wife back. While our duo was captured, the rest of the crew got away, including Rogue Forge Fitzwilliam, played by Hugh Grant, and Red Wizard Sophina, played by Daisy Head, who both betrayed our leads for their own ulterior motives. As Edgin and Holga both escape prison, they return to the outside world and see that Forge has become Lord of Neverwinter through Sophina's conniving assistance, and has also taken in Edgin's daughter, Kira, played by Chloe Coleman, as his own, feeding her lies for the past 2 years. But the two manage to escape and decide to rob Forge's vault and take Kira back with them. They recruit Simon Omar, played by Justice Smith, a half-elf wild magic sorcerer that also managed to escape during the Tablet of Resurrection heist. Simon then introduces them to Doric, played by Sophia Lillis, a tiefling druid who agrees to join their quest for the betterment of her people. The entire cast does a fine job, but due to the writing, is never able to break their one-dimensional mold. The comedy itself ranges in its creativity and execution. For every crafted moment of situational humor, there are few jokes that play out that exudes "well, that just happened" energy. It doesn't manage to escape modern blockbuster humor that is so focused on whether or not the audience understood the joke instead of playing it for face value. The latter is always funnier. Game Night is undoubtedly one of the best studio comedies of the past decade. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, however, feels generic in both its humor and narrative. Though that's not to say it's entirely unenjoyable. There's a bit in the middle where our gang of misfits have to briefly resurrect a graveyard full of corpses in order to decipher the location of a magical item. The corpses each get a bit into their story before our crew realizes that most of them died in comedic manners before even realizing where said magical item is. This leads them to Zenk Yandar, played by Roger Jean Page, a noble paladin who remains an amusing highlight amongst the rest of the narrative. His blatant seriousness about righteousness is amusing and is played off as someone who is so detached from the rest of the world because of it. And it's here where the one-dimensionality of the characters don't matter as much when it's played purely for humor and not for narrative. But once the plot picks up again, I found myself bored by its predictability, and the rest of the pieces just weren't enough to suffice. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves will no doubt entertain fans of the legendary role-playing game and casual filmgoers. However, it's a blockbuster that feels inherently safe, and I find it a little disappointing that the genuine bits of creativity are stifled by such a keen focus on generic plot and predictable arcs. It's hard to engage with characters you've seen so many times before, only reskinned. However, the cast does a tremendous job in their roles, and I wouldn't mind seeing another outing with them with more of a creative direction. The occasional practical work is much appreciated as well, and part of me wishes they doubled down on this instead of working so heavily with the green screen, or at least utilizing it in more of a creative fashion. There have been a couple of blockbusters that have broken the mold within the past few years, and in many ways, Honor Among Thieves feels like a step back. backwards. For a film that cost $150 million to make, I'm just gonna need a bit more. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna have to give Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves a 2.5 out of 5. Like I said, it is still enjoyable in some parts, but for me personally, I felt it a little too tired, wasn't a huge fan of the green screen other than the chunky dragon that chases them in one scene. A lot of the jokes felt cheap, especially that cameo with whom I am not going to reveal the identity of because it might spoil the movie, but that was the joke in the first place, just the actor there. And that's such a turnoff for me in movies when they break that fourth wall and just go, haha, isn't that funny? It's a real life actor and that's the joke. I don't know, I was such a fan of Game Night and I thought that was so much more creative and funny and way more rewatchable at the end of the day, so Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves just felt like a disappointment to me. But I have to say, I'm glad it's finding its audience. I'm glad a lot of people love it. And at the end of the day, just because it wasn't for me doesn't mean I hate it. I have no ill regards for the movie. I'm glad it's finding success. That's the thing with criticism, you know? This movie is definitely gonna have some sequels, some spin-offs. It's going to take off. And all I can hope for is with the future that they kind of take more risks with the storytelling, because that's really what held back my complete immersion from this one. That combined with the overuse of CGI that just looked way too fake to me sometimes. Not to say that can completely destroy a movie, but in this case, it definitely took me out of it more than it should have. But yeah, Sophia Lillis is a highlight of the movie. It's great to see Chris Pine back. And yeah, I do like this band of adventurers, so hopefully we're able to see them again sometime soon. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. My name's Obby, or Spaceman Chuck. There's gonna be some more content coming out soon, so stay tuned.